For the meeting.
Well, yeah, I haven't Do you guys have a toaster?
Hey everyone.
Hi, Jeff.
I need a haircut. How's everyone doing?
Doing good.
Great.
I could use a haircut as well.
I pre-scheduled one for mid-May, but I don't know.
Oh, shit.
By the way, my computer does not have a webcam on.
All right, I'm going to mute some folks as I hear background noise. And I'm going to go ahead and get started. I hope everyone is doing okay. I hope my internet connection holds up. If my internet connection slows down, someone please speak up, because I will not be looking at all of your beautiful faces during the presentation. I am actually going to show a presentation. Can everyone see my screen there?
Yes. Well, it's dark, but it says you're sharing.
I only see the words that say you're sharing your screen.
Right.
So the internet issues are.
There it works now.
Here we are. We've got it.
So, okay. Thank you. Thank you. All right, everyone. Well, thank you. It's good to see you. I know I just came off a great season report by SCA. They went through their whole season, everything they did. The importance of everything was really great. It lasted the whole hour. I don't know if it's still going on, but I had to drop off. And so that was great. If anybody wants to do that, it's a great way to sort of wrap up your programs. And speaking of wrapping up your program, the season is nearing the end, and our original grant was for 3 years, and it was going to end this June. We were lucky that we got a 4th year that's going to start up again next fall, or this coming fall, and then again maybe 4 more years after that. But what we really want for all of you all is to get a job. And we want you to get a job in, it doesn't have to be conservation and restoration and natural resources, but we would love it if you did, and you brought that GulfCorps experience and your work ethic and your professional ethic with you. And so this presentation is to give you some tips and tricks on how to prepare for an interview and how to execute a good interview. We are going to go through the top 10 general rules of interview answers and behaviors, and I'm going to show you some common questions, and then we're going to do a little breakout group. Hopefully I can figure that out on the fly here in a little bit. And you're going to interview each other. And so we're going to ask at that point if everyone can turn on your cameras and we do breakouts. And you're going to ask each other a couple questions. And you're going to go around the room. One person is going to be the asker, one person will be the answerer, and then you'll switch around so everyone gets a chance. And then you'll give each other some feedback. And then we'll give you a little bit of homework at the end so you can have some time and take some time to do these things. I had the opportunity to have a similar class and discussion with the Texas GulfCorps crews, ACE and TXCC, and had some time to do mock interviews with TXCC. I did a mock interview this morning for someone in Pensacola. It's really good. I encourage you to do that. And so with that, we're going to start. And I just want to start by giving you a quick background on how important interviewing is, because this is sometimes your only impression that you can give to someone so that they can trust you enough to hire you and depend on you as part of a team. And so they're expecting you to do your homework and to be prepared and to know your stuff. And so it's very important to you to take that time. Right after I graduated college, I went to work for REI. I don't know if people know what REI is. It's a high-end outdoor clothing and camping and hiking and climbing gear store, mostly in California, but it's a co-op. So it's owned by members. And I taught map and compass, and I was the returns and customer service specialist. I was a terrible salesperson, but I would help people solve problems. And I went through an interview training program through them for 6 weeks. And because I was applying for a position to move to New Jersey and open up a brand new store. So I went through 25 or so mock interviews, and I had to write out my questions, and they interviewed me on the phone, and they interviewed me in person, and they interviewed me with groups and with really high up people. They actually interviewed me with Sally Jewell, who later became the Department of Interior Secretary and is currently TNC's acting CEO. That was 15 years ago. And so that training was the best professional development training I ever had, hands down, bar none. And it's fun, and it explores a lot about you and who you are. And it helps you think about all this awesome stuff you did, because you got to brag about yourself a little bit. You can't be too humble. You have to be fair, but you have to talk about the things that you did and the things that you did well. All right, so top 10 here. I'm going to keep getting a message that my internet is unstable, that I should turn off my webcam. So I'm going to turn off my camera and focus on the presentation. All right, number one. This may be, some of these references are probably older than a lot of you, but does anybody know what knowing is half the battle comes from? What is that a quote from? Anybody know?
G.I. Joe.
Yo.
G.I. Joe, yes, G.I. Joe. Okay, thank you. So this is like the first thing you get asked in an interview really is, what do you know about our company? Why do you want to work for us? And so with an organization like the Nature Conservancy, it was easy for me to really look into their mission and why they do what they do, and see how those things align with me as a person. Like they want to protect, the lands and waters on which all life depends. So to me, that includes humans, that includes the birds and bees, the bunnies and bugs. And so I can identify with that, and I can come up with an example of that. Well, I didn't really spend a lot of time outside until I took my first geology course when I was, 18, and all of a sudden I fell in love with it. And, your mission aligns with how I feel about the environment. So come up with some way that how you as a person relate to their mission, and also know the structure. I guarantee you, if I ask the question to if you were applying for a job at TNC as like a AmeriCorps assistant, like Katie Flowers or Bird Davidson, or even as, you know, a full-time staff member, you know, we want to know that you understand what GulfCorps is. How many people, you know, how many people in GulfCorps could tell you what AmeriCorps is and GulfCorps is and what the difference in those two things are? Probably not a lot. And so you need to find out what you're applying for and why it's important. All right, let's see. Number 2, read and reread. So job descriptions are terrible, just notoriously. And that is something that happens because we have a lot of attorneys and lawyers who wordsmith the job descriptions to be fair and equitable. However, what happens is people get stuck. Organizations, agencies, TNC is a major culprit of this, is that we have these templates of job descriptions and based on the level of pay you're going to pay this person. And it includes a general layout of the common requirements, like qualifications, if you have a master's degree or a bachelor's degree, 5 years of experience. And so some of those things are flexible because a lot of times people don't really change the requirements from job to job. And so they may not need someone with a PhD or with a master's degree. I do not have either. When I first started working for TNC, I was interviewing against PhD scientists who had been doing oyster restoration for a long time, but they didn't read the job description. And so they didn't really truly understand what they were doing. Ask for help on this. I feel like I could do a whole class on deciphering job descriptions, and maybe we'll do that. But take a look at any job description, and if you can understand it 100%, then you're in the wrong business. And so if you need help, ask for help. Sometimes they give you time or ask you, do you have any questions about the position? That's a common question that I ask during all of my interviews. Do you have any questions about the position? Do you understand what you're going to be doing day to day? Do you understand what your responsibilities are? I want to know. I don't care really if they've read the job description. If they can answer this question, then they haven't.
Yes, they can, but don't say mute, man. Mute.
Yeah, we've got some people. If you can mute your phone, please. Okay, next. 3. Once upon a time, tell a story with your answer. Don't be too long-winded. The best answers are approximately 30 seconds. And this is not something that you can do on the fly. They are going to ask you questions about how have you handled a difficult situation? How have you handled a difficult boss? How have you handled not being able to meet a commitment? They want to know the bad stuff. They want to know how you handle these things. And so most people have faced these issues before. You all have probably faced a situation where you didn't necessarily agree with the rules, but you realize they're the rules and you need a job, and maybe you don't understand why the rule is that rule, but you went along with it anyway. And so you've got to be able to tell a story for the response in your question. We'll get to more of that later. Number 4, perfect practice makes perfect, and that is not a typo. This is something I learned from my stepdad, who was a baseball coach for 35 years in North Alabama, the UNA. And very regimented, very high work ethic, was always working, and he would never say practice makes perfect, because if you don't make your practices perfect, then you're not going to be able to get it perfect during the interview. So the practice is the hardest part, and it's kind of the most dreaded part of people. I get that. We totally get that. But once you start it, and once you get into it, and once you just like rip off that Band-Aid or that scab real quick, and you get into a first couple questions, you'll really start to get into it, and you'll see like, oh, this sounds a lot better if I say it like this, or if I add this little bit. You know, write it as if you would speak it, because you need to rehearse your answers. You need to remember your answers, and they need to come out naturally. Mix it up. A lot of y'all, people at this age, don't have a lot of work history. Totally understandable. We get that, but dig deep and think about maybe, scouts, or maybe one time where you needed to help a neighbor, or how you help out around the home, or how you've worked in a school project or in the band. Like, think about your roles, your situations. Like, come up with diverse answers. I usually try to create 2 or 3 answers for each question, which give different examples, because one of those 3 are going to be perfect for the answer. And if they ask for more, a lot of times they'll ask you to expand on an answer, and then you've got another one ready. You can add a second one in there, a third one in there. There's no I in team, but there are 2 in winning. And what this means is, like, don't be shy. Like, it is like a, humility, being humble. That's important always, right? But you are your only real advocate in these situations. No one else is there behind you cheerleading you on there. So you have to show your worth and your effort and what you've brought to the table. And if you've been on a team, on a GulfCorps team as a crew member, well, then you have different levels of supervisors. You have crew leaders, you have your core staff. You're on the phone with me right now, and so, like, you have all these different levels of responsibilities and communications and participation, and you have to speak up to that. If you've built boardwalks, that's great. But you know what? If you know how to run a chop saw, if you know how to read a measuring tape really well, if you know how to square up boards and replace and do demolition and treat invasive species with backpack sprayers and hand sprayers, like, that's what's important. Not, yeah, we treated invasive species. We need to know, what about that invasive species did you do? What did you like? How do you know you did a good job? Like, go into some more detail and be your own spokesperson. You have to be able to brag on yourself a little bit. You don't have to be braggy, or you don't have to be arrogant, or have an ego about it. But it is very important to at least show all this work you did. And if you don't know what you did, then you have a folder, you have a crew log, you have a final report that has every single thing that you have done in GulfCorps. And it is more than almost any environmental professional today has done in that first season or first 2 seasons in terms of diversity of work that you've done. So you've learned so many different trades in 1 year, compared to usually people do a couple seasons in field work in the same thing, like monitoring or like basis only. But you're out here doing all these different things. You need to stand out in those ways and be able to share those things with those people. All right, number 7. Oh, that slide got messed up. Let's see. Willingness after battle. Oh, let's see what happens. Hang on 1 second. All right. 5. It's always 5 somewhere. And what that means is you should always have 5 questions ready. And, you know, it's okay to make 2 of those questions. Folks could mute your line. There was some feedback there. So at the end of the interview, they ask you if you have any questions for us. You always need to have some questions. And it's okay if you have questions that are easy to answer or that you know that they will answer during the interview. Because if they answer your questions, then hey, you know, make a note of that. And then when you come to this section, you can say things like, you answered my 3rd question, you know, who would be my supervisor? And you answered my 5th question about the amount of travel I'd be doing. But I really wanted to know, like, what was a day in the life of this position? Like, what would I be doing? You will have been spending this whole time in this interview painting a picture of yourself to these people so that they trust you enough to hire you. Give them a chance to paint a picture of what you'd be doing. You know, ask, you know, in a nice way, not in a, you know, a make or break way. What is your supervisory style? How do you prefer to communicate? Like, how often do you have check-ins, or how often do I need to report and all that stuff? Like, give them a chance to talk, and that's a really good note to leave on, because whether you like, you know, whether you believe it or not, people that are hiring other people, they get, this is a long process for them. They're usually interviewing, you know, 3 to 10 people for it. They've probably gotten 100 or more resumes. It's even going to be harder after COVID-19. There's going to be a lot more resumes out there to compete with. And so if you can, you know, give them a chance to feel good about their organization and their team, and ask them about that. Like, what are your successes? Like, what gets you really excited as a team? Those are questions that people don't ask a lot, but the reactions that you get are really good. It also gives you so much insight into the team you'd be working with, the people you'd be working with. All right. I guess that should have been 7, huh? Okay. 8, if you get asked about your weaknesses, they always ask, what is your biggest weakness, or what is your biggest strength? One thing to remember too is they ask those questions to your references too. They usually ask that question when they call your references. Yeah, I would remove the word weakness from your vocabulary, not because you don't want to show weakness, but you really should be thinking about your weaknesses as opportunities for improvement. And so, for example, you know, I'm really weak in a Microsoft Project, which is a project management software that that helps you manage big, giant projects like GulfCorps. I've tried it. I'm okay in it, but I'm not good at it. I'm technically weak in it. But to me, if I had a little time, if my manager allowed me to do it, that's a huge opportunity for me to get really good at that in the project management style of that company or organization that I'm trying to get the job for. And that's a huge opportunity for improvement for me. So think about your weaknesses in those terms, not as a weakness, but as an opportunity for improvement. All right, number 9, always include the importance of communication in your answers. And what this means, and this is something that Dan McClendon with the ACE crew in Corpus Christi said, I really like this, is, people want to know how you communicate well. They want to know if you're a texter, if you're if you're a messenger, instant messenger, or if you like to do Zoom calls, or if you know how to do Zoom calls, if you like it in person, if you like to talk to people on the phone, and like all of those things for different situations. Like if you're gonna meet someone on site and you're running a few minutes late, you're not gonna have a Zoom call with them on the way there. You're gonna call them on your cell or text them and make sure they know, hey, I'm running 10 minutes late. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to break that commitment, but there was some traffic, or we had some issues this morning, and we're all good now. We'll be there as quick as we can. Okay, so they want to know how you communicate, and you can insert that word communication into almost every answer that you use. It's so important. It's universal. It encompasses all the rules. All right, number 10, last one. This is show your appreciation. What I typically do is when I'm getting ready to apply for a job, I spend a couple weeks before really preparing myself for it. And one of the last things I do is I either write a handwritten note or I start a handwritten note that says thank you. And then I also draft an email that also says thank you. And I get that completely ready to go. And then at the end, after the interview, I maybe personalize it somehow. Like if they said something interesting or inspiring, like I try to say, hey, I like what you said about blah, blah, blah. It really inspires me to do blah, 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 if that makes sense. So pay attention, make notes. That way you can personalize thank you. If you can manage it, having a thank you email and pressing send, like within the first 5 minutes of the end of your interview, if it's online, it really is great, because half of the people will not send a thank you, period. The other half may send something that is quick or short, but it may be a couple hours the next day after the fact. So do it right away. It shows that you have respect for what you did in the position that you're applying for. Okay, so I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to see, does anybody have any questions about the top 10 general rules for nailing an interview? Okay, good. Because we are gonna, in a few minutes, hopefully launch into an exercise where you're gonna put some of those things to practice. Okay? And so before we do that, I wanna show you some sample interview questions. But first,
This is Eileen.
yes.
I'm sorry. It looks like Mary Beth has put a question in the chat box.
Oh, thank you. I did not, I can't manage to see all of those things at the same time.
Yes, no
so.
problem. Would you like for me to read it, or will you access it?
Yeah, you can, if you wouldn't mind reading it for me.
Of course. It says, you talked about potentially not having qualifications. How do you handle that in an interview?
If you don't have the qualifications that they're asking for, is that kind of the question?
Yes. Oh, she added specifically regarding education. If you don't meet, sounds like if you don't meet the education qualification requirements, how do you handle that?
Well, sometimes, typically you'd get filtered out if you don't meet those things. And so if you do make it through, then to me it means they're willing to accept your education. If you don't, then they will have a question about those things, and so they will ask you to follow up. I just wanted to show you one of the newest members to the family here. This is Smokey, and he's a brother of a brother-sister combo that we just got on Sunday, and they're pretty good dogs. I'm on puppy duty, so does that answer your question, Mary Beth?
For the most part, yes. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so in the virtual programs folder, under the professional development subfolders. Uh-oh, she okay? Oh, she's just being dramatic. I'm sorry. So there is this list of 22 questions. And so these are questions that I've compiled from all the interviews and all the interviews I've given, but also the interviews that I've been in, and some of the sample questions that I've been thinking about and asking since that training at REI 15 years ago. And so I'm just going to show you a few. And usually the questions are geared to gauge certain, certain topics, like your initiative and your communication, and your dedication and maturity and your teamwork. Okay. Problem solving skills, job responsibilities, and then there's your interview rapid questions, which it sort of made its own thing. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to run through these questions again, and I want everyone who is participating, this is where it's important for you to do some work. So I'm going to ask you to get your notebook or a piece of paper or pen out or something. And what you're going to do is I'm going to run through these 21 questions real quick. I'm just going to let you read them off the screen. And I want you all to pick 2 questions that you want people to ask you when we do a breakout question. A breakout session when we go on breakout rooms. Okay, so you're going to pick your 2 favorites. You're not going to pick 22, and you're not going to pick the research questions or the do you understand the job questions. So you're going to pick between questions 5 and 21. Okay. So just jot down your favorite 2 questions. I'll scroll through the slides slowly. I'll do it a few times. I'm going to put myself on mute, and as I do it, I'm going to set up the breakout rooms, okay? So I'll sit tight, jot down your questions. All right, I'm going to go back up and run through them quickly again. So the choices are on this first slide are the general motivation questions number 5 and 6. Any of these, initiative or communication. Dedication, maturity, teamwork. Any of these. Okay, so now this is what you're going to do. I'm going to put you into breakout rooms, 3 to 4 people per room. Please turn on your cameras. It's important to do that when you're asking these questions to each other. I am going to hop around. I'm just sort of randomly doing this. And so everyone that's in a room, whether you are a staff or a corps member, please be prepared to participate. You can send, I think you can send me a message if something happens or goes wrong, but we'd like each person in each breakout room, if someone needs to volunteer to go first, and someone needs to volunteer to report out. Okay, and each person gets a chance to ask questions, and each person gets a chance to answer questions. So you just trade off, go around the circle, and then give each other feedback based on what you what we have talked about in this presentation so far. Telling a story, being you know, talking about all the skills that you have learned and all the experience that you've gained. Okay, 30-second question, 30-second answers. And so this is going to be pretty quick, so y'all need to jump into it very quickly. I'm going to just sort of bounce around a little bit and see how people are doing. Okay, you're going to have 10 minutes to do this. Okay, let's see if this works. You have to accept the invitation.
Jeff, I received a message about joining a breakout group. This is Aline, but do you still want me to stay in the main meeting?
I think you should try to join a breakout if you can.
Oh, absolutely. No problem.
Okay.
We are back.
Oh! Oh no.
Hey, everyone.
Hey.
Howdy.
Sorry, I don't know if it got interrupted at all. My Zoom went out for just a second, but it seems to be back on now. All right, so all breakout rooms will close in 20 seconds. Looks like we have most of y'all back. Okay, so I want to take a volunteer, or who wants to report out about their group and the general feedback, or were there any really good answers, or did everyone sort of do the same thing or make the same mistake? Oh, looks like we just got a big pulse of everyone back. All right. Hey, everyone, welcome back. And so now we want to take a few minutes to get feedback from whoever you designated in your group to get feedback. And what I'd like to know is, what were your general thoughts of that? Were there any amazing answers? Is there anything that just made you, realize something great or interesting or different or new? Or if there's anything that you want to work on, you all think you need to work on. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. Something I realized when answering questions was delivery and projection, and ensuring you don't stumble over words and say words like and a lot. Trying to be precise and ensuring your interviewers can listen to you clearly, and you don't have to reiterate or anything. And that's something that's pretty prominent in interviews. It's something I learned during our breakout session.
Great, thank you. Anybody else?
Definitely practice and delivery. When you're put on the spot, it's kind of hard just to think up an answer just that quick. Just like right now, But when you practice, you write things down and you get those experiences in your head. Then it's just second nature to just pull that out of your bank.
Yep, it comes out. It feels natural. You know the whole answer. You're confident because you practiced it. You know it. Yes. Who wants to go next?
I will. What I've noticed in the last 10 minutes is that one of the most important things to me is to come in there with confidence and not, to know what you're going to say or, expect what to be asked. Like me, I was in the last 10 minutes. Kyle just, or not, I just seen Kyle's name. Connor asked me a question. I started sweating in 2 minutes. So I'm just like, man, I gotta get right. Gotta be more prepared.
Yep, gotta be prepared. Gotta be comfortable.
Confident.
Yep. All right, who else wants to share?
I think throughout all of GulfCorps, my entire experience with GulfCorps, and all of the mock interviews I've done throughout the entire term, we kind of talked about it in our group, but having different answers for all of the questions, because we definitely answered the same question and it was the exact same answer, just formatted a little bit different. And I think that it's really important to prepare 4 or 5 answers for each question.
Yep. Very important to do that. It's good to mix it up. It's good to show that you can apply that question and answer it from multiple perspectives. Who else wants to share?
I'll go. In our group, we kind of got to talking in the feedback part. I kind of shared my experience through the mock interview that I had with Tia. And I said that I was grateful for you guys coming to help us and do mock interviews in the first place to have these questions, and I've practiced a lot to prepare myself to get a new job. And that's what I said, was going in there with confidence, even if they don't ask the questions that you're expecting, just even be able to have some sort of memory or something to go and answer those questions is very helpful. And it helps you gain confidence, just knowing like you know your stuff and you are capable of doing this job, and you just have to show them and tell them that.
Yep. Great. Yep. All right. Any thoughts from any staff or anyone else wants to share anything? I don't think we have time to go around to every group.
Well, I was really impressed with the young people that were in my group, Kat and Matt, which is easy to remember. They gave really great responses, and good questions, and I think they've been working on this, you can tell. And so I think everyone's seeing, you know, there are places where we can all improve and get better, but I think everybody's definitely on the right track and working towards a good goal. So it was a great experience.
Great, great. Okay, well, so we're nearing the end, and what we're going to do is give you all some homework, and it's optional homework, but if you do it, it will give you, in my eyes, it will give you credit for, you know, doing something maybe that is not on Zoom. I'm kind of zoomed out. I don't know about all y'all, but there's only so much Zoom we can all take, right? And so the homework is for you to get these interview questions, find a job that you want to do, find a position maybe you've been looking at, or you know, an open position, even if it's been put on hold, or just an example of a position. Doesn't have to be that exact, you know, position. And I want you to write answers out to these questions. Okay. And so, Eileen, when you and I spoke, I don't know, last week about this, we said we were going to get some level of credit for this assignment. And I don't exactly remember what it was, but I think what we're going to do is we give you 10 minutes 10 minutes worth of credit for each answer that you can write out and make it into a good 30-second answer. And it can be multiple answers for one question, and but they have to be good. They have to be typed. They need to be submitted to your course. You get an extra 10 minutes if you do a practice round with someone, up to 3 hours. Okay, so there are a lot of 10-minute segments in 3 hours of work. Can anyone tell me how many 10-minute segments are in 3 hours of work?
18.
Thank you. So that's about 17 answers and one practice. And once you start a few, and once you get into the groove, the rest will come really, really easy. And if you do this good and it starts flowing, you could potentially, get that credit for, and have some free time on your hands. It shouldn't take you the full 3 hours to do that. Please submit your answers to your cores. And before we close, do we have any last minute questions that people have? Okay, cores, the sample interview questions will be in the virtual programs Google Drive folder under monitoring. I'm sorry, that's not right. Under professional development, you'll find the sample interview questions and my presentation. And when this recording is sent to me, I'll probably put it on YouTube, and then make an entry into the database so you all can access it at a later time. So thanks everyone. Appreciate everyone being interactive and participating. Good job. You really have to do that in these sorts of things. So thanks for what you do. Hang in there, and hope everyone's doing well, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for doing this today, Jeff.
My pleasure. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you. Bye-bye.
Great job, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.